My brother convinced everyone I was unstable and shouldn't live alone to justify why he should take my apartment. Turns out he was buried in gambling debt and saw my place as his escape. Can you imagine your own brother trying to have you declared mentally ill just so he could steal your home? He didn't just want my apartment. He wanted to dismantle my entire identity to get it. And the real reason why, it was absolutely shocking. Let me tell you, I'm 29 years old, and I've always been what people call an introvert. Not in that cute, quirky movie way. I mean, I genuinely prefer spending most of my time alone. I'm a remote software developer. I have a small circle of friends I see maybe once a month, and honestly, I was perfectly content with my life. Or at least I was until my older brother, Michael, decided that my personality was suddenly a huge problem that needed fixing. Michael is 31, married to Jennifer, with 2 kids, Tyler, who's 6, and little Olivia, who's 4. For the past 3 years, they've been cramped in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment, constantly complaining about the lack of space. Meanwhile, I live in my grandmother's old 3-bedroom apartment. She left it to me specifically in her 2 years ago. Grandma always used to say I was the only one who appreciated the quiet the same way she did. It's in a fantastic neighborhood, great schools, and it even has a little garden out back. It's perfect for a family. And that, my friends, is exactly why Michael thinks he should have it instead of me. But instead of just asking me or trying to work something out like a normal human being, he chose a completely different strategy. He started convincing everyone that there was something fundamentally wrong with me for wanting to live alone. It started small, you know? At family dinners, he'd make these little comments. Nathan's still holed up in that big apartment all by himself. Or, I worry about him rattling around in there with no one to talk to. Our parents would usually just brush it off, but I could always see Jennifer, his wife, nodding along, chiming in with her own concerns about how unhealthy it was for someone my age to be so isolated. Then, the comments got sharper. During Thanksgiving, Michael launched into this whole dramatic speech about the importance of family and community, all while staring directly at me. He went on and on about how humans are social creatures and how isolation can lead to dangerous thought patterns. My cousin Laura, who's actually studying psychology, tried to interject. Michael, introversion is perfectly normal. But he just steamrolled right over her, saying he'd been reading studies about the dangers of self-imposed isolation. It was infuriating. The real escalation hit last month. I'd declined to go to Tyler's birthday party. Look, I love my nephew, but it was going to be this massive event with 30 screaming kids and their parents, and I'd already planned to spend that weekend working on a personal coding project. I sent a really nice gift, and I called Tyler to wish him happy birthday, but apparently that just wasn't enough. Michael called me the next day, and I could tell he was building up to something. Nathan, he said, using that fake concerned big brother voice that immediately put me on edge. We need to talk about your behavior. My behavior? I asked, genuinely confused. You missed Tyler's birthday. Again. I didn't miss it. I called him and sent a gift. I just didn't attend the party. That's the problem, Nathan. You never attend anything. Mom's worried. Dad's worried. Jennifer and I are worried. This isn't normal. I tried to explain. I told him, Michael, I'm just introverted. I show love in different ways. But he wasn't having any of it. He kept throwing around phrases like antisocial tendencies and self-isolating behavior, terms he'd clearly Googled to make his point sound more legitimate. Look, he finally said, his voice losing its patient facade. I'm just going to say it. You living alone in that big apartment isn't healthy. You need people around you, Nathan. You need life, energy, kids running around. The apartment is being wasted on you. There it was, the real reason for all his concern. So, this is about the apartment, I said flatly. No, well, yes, partly. Think about it, Nathan. Tyler and Olivia could each have their own room. They'd have a yard to play in, good schools nearby. Meanwhile, you're using 3 bedrooms as, what? An office. A gaming room? It's selfish, Nathan. I hung up on him. Maybe that was childish, but I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. He was trying to pathologize my entire personality, my being, just to justify taking my home. Since then, he ramped up his campaign. He started calling our parents daily, sending them articles about social isolation and depression. He convinced our Aunt Patricia that I was showing warning signs of something serious. He even reached out to my ex-girlfriend, Amanda, from 3 years ago, fishing for information about whether I was like this when we were together. Amanda, bless her, told him to mind his own business and immediately texted me about it. The worst part was that some family members actually started buying into it. My mom called me yesterday, suggesting maybe I should talk to someone about my isolation issues. When I pointed out that I'm happy, successful, and financially stable, she said, "But honey, happiness isn't just about money." Michael showed me this article about people who think they're happy alone, but are actually deeply depressed. I was at my wit's end. I love my quiet life. I love my apartment with its book-lined walls and peaceful garden. I love being able to work on my projects without interruption, to decide on a whim to spend my Saturday reading or coding, or just thinking. There's nothing wrong with me. I just don't want the life Michael has decided everyone should want. But now I was second-guessing myself. Was I being selfish, keeping a family-sized apartment to myself? Was there something actually wrong with preferring solitude? Or was my brother just manipulating everyone because he wanted what I had? I didn't know what to do. How do I defend my lifestyle choices when he's framing them as symptoms of a problem? How do I convince my family that being introverted isn't a mental illness? And how do I deal with the growing pressure to give up my home just to prove I'm normal? I felt like I was going crazy, which was ironic because that's exactly what Michael wanted everyone to think. First, I want to thank everyone who responded to my original post. Your comments, your advice, they gave me the confidence to stand my ground. But unfortunately, things escalated in ways I never imagined. After reading your advice, I decided to try and have a calm, rational conversation with my parents. I invited them over for dinner at my apartment, thinking if they saw how well I was doing, how clean and organized everything was, how normal my life was, they'd finally realize Michael was overreacting. Dinner started well. I cooked their favorite meal. We chatted about their recent vacation. Everything seemed normal. Then my mom brought up the elephant in the room. "Nathan, we need to talk about your situation," she said, exchanging a look with my father. "What situation?" I asked, even though I knew exactly what she meant. "Your isolation, honey. Michael's been sharing some concerning things with us." I took a deep breath and launched into the explanation I'd prepared. I talked about introversion versus extroversion, how different people need different levels of social interaction, how I was perfectly happy with my life. I even showed them my recent work performance review. Excellent across the board, and my latest medical checkup results, perfectly healthy. My dad seemed to be coming around, nodding as I spoke. But my mom? She looked unconvinced. "But Nathan," she said, "when was the last time you went on a date? When was the last time you did something spontaneous with friends? These are normal things people your age do." "I went to dinner with my friend Erin last month," I pointed out. "And I'm not interested in dating right now. That's a choice, not a symptom." That's when she dropped the bombshell. "Michael thinks you might be on the spectrum, honey. He found this checklist online, and you match a lot of the criteria." My jaw actually dropped. The spectrum? Mom, are you seriously suggesting I'm autistic because I like living alone? Well, the social difficulties, the rigid routines, the special interests in computers. I'm a software developer. Computing isn't a special interest. It's my career. The conversation devolved from there. Every single point I made was countered with something Michael had told them or shown them. Apparently, he'd been building this case for weeks, complete with screenshots of articles, YouTube videos about hidden signs of adult autism, and get this, even a PowerPoint presentation about the benefits of community-supported living for people with social challenges. I wish I was joking. The next day, I got a call from Michael. He was furious that I'd ambushed our parents with dinner instead of having a proper family meeting about my issues. When I told him to stop pathologizing my personality, he accused me of being in denial. "This isn't about the apartment," he insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. "This is about your well-being. But since you brought it up, yes, I think living somewhere smaller, maybe closer to family, would be better for you. And it would be a crime to let Grandma's apartment sit empty of children's laughter when Tyler and Olivia could be growing up there." "It's not empty," I said through gritted teeth. "I live there." "You exist there, Nathan. There's a difference." I hung up again, but this time he didn't let it go. 2 days later, I got a call from my supervisor at work. Michael had contacted my company's HR department, expressing concern about my work-from-home situation. He suggested I might be struggling with depression and that the isolation of remote work was making it worse. Thankfully, my supervisor knows me well and recognized this as the bizarre overreach it was, but she had to follow up as a formality. Then he contacted my landlord from my previous apartment, trying to find out if I'd had problems with neighbors or if there had been any concerning incidents during my tenancy. My old landlord called me, confused, saying my brother was asking strange questions about my mental health and whether I'd ever needed wellness checks. The most infuriating part? Michael was doing all of this while maintaining his concerned brother facade. He'd post on Facebook about the importance of mental health awareness and supporting family members who are struggling. Our mutual friends thought he was being so supportive and caring. Jennifer would comment on every post about what a wonderful brother-in-law I was lucky to have. Meanwhile, in our family group chat, he started sharing daily articles. 10 signs your loved one needs help. The hidden dangers of social isolation. Why some people can't see their own mental health struggles. Each one was clearly aimed at me, but framed as general concern for family wellness. Last week, he suggested a family intervention. He actually used that word. Intervention, like I'm an addict or something. He wanted everyone to gather at our parents' house to lovingly confront me about my issues and help me see that I need support. I refused. I told him if he scheduled such a meeting, I wouldn't attend. His response? "Your refusal to engage with family concern is just another symptom, Nathan. We're trying to help you." I was starting to feel like I was trapped in some kind of psychological thriller. Every normal thing I did was twisted into evidence of a problem. I like routine. That's rigidity. I enjoy solitude. That's isolation. I don't want to attend loud, crowded events. That's social anxiety. I work from home, successfully. That's enabling my condition. The stress of constantly defending my lifestyle was, ironically, making me want to isolate even more. I'd started screening calls, avoiding family texts, and yes, spending even more time alone, which I'm sure Michael would spin as further deterioration. I finally made an appointment with a therapist, not because I thought there was anything wrong with me, but because I needed a professional to document that I was perfectly fine. It felt insane that I needed to prove my sanity to keep my brother from convincing everyone I was unwell. But here we were. The therapist appointment went exactly as I expected. Dr. Robert Stevens, who came highly recommended, listened to my situation with increasing incredulity. After our second session, he was happy to write a letter stating that I showed no signs of depression, autism, or any other condition that would impair my ability to live independently. In fact, he commended me on my self-awareness and healthy coping mechanisms. If anything, he told me, the stress you're experiencing from your family's interference is the only threat to your mental health I can see. Armed with this professional opinion, I thought I could finally put this nonsense to rest. I was wrong. Michael's response to the therapist's letter? He suggested that I had manipulated the therapist or hidden my true self during the sessions. He actually said, "Of course, you can act normal for an hour when you're paying someone to listen to you. That's not the same as maintaining real relationships." The irony of him accusing me of manipulation while he orchestrated this entire campaign wasn't lost on me. Things came to a head 3 weeks ago. I was having a perfectly normal Thursday, working on a complex coding project when I heard a knock at my door. Not the buzzer. Someone was at my actual apartment door, which meant they'd been let into the building. I opened it to find Michael, Jennifer, my parents, and, to my shock, 2 people I didn't recognize. "Nathan," my mother said, her eyes already tearing up, "we're here because we love you." The 2 strangers turned out to be a social worker and a family counselor that Michael had hired. They'd all come for an intervention, despite my explicit refusal to participate in one. "You can't just ambush me at my home," I said, blocking the doorway. "The fact that you see family concern as an ambush is exactly why we're worried," Michael said, trying to peer around me into my apartment. "Please, Nathan, just let us in. Let us help you." I stood my ground. I'm not letting a social worker into my home without a warrant or valid reason. This is harassment. The social worker, a woman named Carol, looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Thompson, I should clarify that I'm here in an unofficial capacity. Your brother hired me as a consultant, not through any official channels. You're under no obligation to speak with me." This admission seemed to frustrate Michael. "Carol, please tell him what you told me about isolation and mental health." Carol shifted awkwardly. "I shared some general information about social isolation, but I cannot and will not diagnose someone I haven't properly evaluated, especially against their will." The family counselor, a man named Dr. Brian Phillips, tried a different approach. "Nathan, your family is here because they care. Sometimes we need help seeing what others can see clearly. Would it hurt to just talk?" "I've been talking," I said firmly. "I've been explaining, defending, and justifying my perfectly normal life for months. I'm done. You all need to leave." That's when Michael played what he clearly thought was his ace card. "Fine, Nathan. If you won't let us help you, then let's talk about Grandma's will." Everyone went silent. Even Jennifer looked surprised. "What about it?" I asked. "I've been talking to a lawyer. There might be grounds to contest it based on your mental state." My mental state? 2 years ago when she died? When I was 27 and had been living independently for years? "No," he said, and his voice had lost all pretense of concern. "Grandma's mental state. She left the apartment to you because she was isolated too, Nathan. She enabled your behavior because she saw herself in you. A competent person would have seen that a family home should go to an actual family." The mask had finally slipped. Completely. My mother gasped. Michael and even Jennifer looked shocked. The social worker and counselor exchanged uncomfortable glances. "Get out," I said quietly. "All of you, get out of my building before I call the police." My father, who had been silent this whole time, finally spoke up. "Michael, that's enough. We're leaving." He took my mother's arm and started guiding her toward the elevator. Michael tried one more time. "This isn't over, Nathan. You need help whether you see it or not." "What I need," I said, "is a restraining order." That shut him up. They all left, but not before I heard Jennifer whisper furiously to Michael in the hallway, "You said this was about helping him." Since then, I've had to take actual steps to protect myself. I've installed a Ring doorbell and additional security cameras. I've documented every interaction, every text, every Facebook post. I've consulted with a lawyer of my own about harassment charges and what grounds Michael might actually have to contest the will. Spoiler alert, none. The family has been divided. My parents are mortified by Michael's behavior at the ambush, especially his comment about Grandma. Several cousins have reached out to support me, sharing their own stories of Michael's manipulative behavior over the years. Apparently, I'm not the first family member he's tried to steamroll to get what he wants. But the damage to our relationship is done. How do you come back from your brother, trying to have you declared mentally incompetent, so he can steal your home? How do you sit across from him at Christmas dinner knowing he spent months building a case that you're unfit to live alone? The latest development is that Jennifer has been reaching out, trying to apologize. She claims she didn't know how far Michael was planning to take things, that she thought it really was about concern for my well-being. She's been staying with her sister Patricia for the past week, taking the kids with her. "He convinced me you were struggling," she texted me yesterday. "I should have talked to you directly instead of believing everything he said. I'm sorry, Nathan. The apartment thing. I swear I didn't know that was his real motive." I want to believe her, but trust is hard to come by these days, especially when Michael is now painting himself as the victim on social media, claiming I'm tearing the family apart by refusing help and threatening legal action against a concerned brother. I'm exhausted. Ironically, this whole ordeal has made me value my solitude even more. The quiet of my apartment, the peace of my garden, the simple joy of existing without constant scrutiny or judgment. These things feel more precious than ever. Dr. Stevens, my therapist, has been a godsend through this. "You know what's interesting?" he said in our last session. "Your brother has exhibited more concerning behavior in his campaign against you than anything you've supposedly done. Manipulation, harassment, attempting to isolate you from support systems, gaslighting. These are actually warning signs of psychological issues." I hadn't thought of it that way, but he's right. In trying to paint me as mentally unwell, Michael has revealed his own issues with control, entitlement, and manipulation. I'll update again if anything significant happens. For now, I'm focusing on protecting my peace and my home. And yes, I'm doing it alone in my big apartment with my books and my code and my garden. Because despite what my brother thinks, that's not a symptom of illness. It's a choice. My choice. I debated whether to write this final update, but I feel like I owe it to everyone who's followed this bizarre journey. The last 4 months have been a roller coaster, but I'm finally in a place where I can say this chapter of my life is closed. About 2 months after my last update, things were relatively quiet. Michael and I hadn't spoken. Jennifer was still separated from him and living with her sister, and the family was slowly healing from the drama. I'd started to relax, thinking maybe it was over. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, I got a call from my building's management. They'd received a wellness check request from the police, saying a concerned family member had reported that I hadn't been seen or heard from in weeks and might be in danger. I was literally on a video call with 3 colleagues when the police knocked. I answered the door with my laptop in hand, clearly in the middle of a work meeting, very much alive and well. The 2 officers looked embarrassed. "Sir, we're sorry to bother you. We received a call that you might be in distress. Hadn't been responding to family contacts." "I'm fine," I said, showing them my active work meeting. "My brother has been harassing me. There's documentation with my lawyer." They took notes and left, but I was shaken. Michael had escalated to making false police reports. The next day it got worse. My parents showed up at my door, frantic. Michael had told them he'd driven by my apartment at various times over the past week and never saw lights on. Never saw me coming or going. He'd convinced them I was either dead inside or had abandoned the apartment and was living on the street somewhere. "We've been calling you," my mother cried. I pulled out my phone, showing her no missed calls. That's when we realized Michael had been telling them he'd been calling me from their phones when they weren't around, deleting the call logs to make it seem like I was ignoring them. The manipulation was so calculated, so cruel. He was literally trying to drive a wedge between me and our parents by faking rejected communications. But here's where things took an unexpected turn. Tyler, my 6-year-old nephew, became the unlikely hero of this story. Jennifer had been bringing the kids to visit my parents while she figured things out with Michael. Tyler, always a bright kid, overheard one of these conversations about Uncle Nathan not answering calls. But Daddy said Uncle Nathan blocked everyone. Tyler piped up innocently. He showed me on his phone. He said, Uncle Nathan doesn't want to talk to us anymore because he's sick in his head." The room went silent. My mother asked Tyler to repeat what he'd said, and the 6-year-old, not understanding the gravity of his words, cheerfully explained how Daddy had shown him a special app that makes it look like calls were made when they weren't, how Daddy said it was a grown-up game to help Uncle Nathan get better. My father immediately called me, and for the first time in months, I heard real anger in his voice directed at Michael, not me. They confronted Michael that evening, and faced with Tyler's innocent revelation, he couldn't deny it. The full truth came out in spectacular fashion. Michael had been in significant gambling debt. It turned out online poker had spiraled out of control during the pandemic, and he'd hidden it from everyone, including Jennifer. He'd convinced himself that if he could just get the apartment, he could sell his current place, pay off the debts, and no one would ever know. Every article about mental health, every concerned conversation, every manipulative tactic had been carefully planned to justify taking my home. He'd researched for months, learning just enough psychology terminology to sound credible, identifying which family members would be most susceptible to his narrative. Jennifer was devastated. She genuinely believed I was struggling and that Michael was trying to help. Learning that he'd used their children in his scheme, that he'd risked our entire family's relationships for money he'd gambled away, it was too much. She filed for divorce within the week. The family rallied around her and the kids. My parents, horrified by how completely they'd been manipulated, have been in therapy themselves to process the betrayal. They've apologized countless times, though I've told them they don't need to. Michael is a master manipulator who knew exactly which buttons to push. As for Michael himself, he's facing charges for filing a false police report and harassment. Jennifer's divorce lawyer has been very interested in his gambling debts and the lengths he went to hide them. He's lost his family, his reputation, and any sympathy he might have garnered. The irony isn't lost on me. In trying to paint me as mentally unwell and isolated, he's ended up actually alone, facing very real consequences for his actions. Meanwhile, I've never felt more supported by my family, minus one brother, or more secure in my choices. My apartment is still my sanctuary. I still work from home, still enjoy my solitude, still tend my garden and read my books. But now, when I choose to be alone, it's without the weight of defending that choice. My family understands that my introversion isn't a flaw to be fixed or a symptom to be treated. It's just who I am. Tyler and Olivia visit sometimes. We have quiet afternoons where they read in the garden or help me with simple coding projects. They're learning that Uncle Nathan's house is a peaceful place where they don't have to be loud or performative to be loved. Jennifer has apologized more times than I can count. She even showed me the research Michael had compiled on me. Folders of articles, screenshots of my sparse social media, even a timeline of my deteriorating condition, which was really just a list of family events I'd chosen not to attend. The level of planning was disturbing. He had an answer for everything, she told me last week over coffee. Every time I questioned whether you were really that bad, he'd have another article, another expert opinion. He made me feel like a bad person for not seeing how much you were struggling. I've forgiven her. She was a victim of Michael's manipulation, too, even if she benefited from it potentially. The fact that she left him when she learned the truth says everything about her character. Dr. Stevens and I still meet monthly, not because I need therapy, but because I've genuinely enjoyed having a professional to help me process this experience. He's helped me understand that standing firm in who you are, even when faced with intense pressure to change, is a form of strength many people never develop. Your brother tried to pathologize your autonomy, he said in our last session. He wanted you to believe that being different was being broken, but you never wavered in knowing yourself. That's remarkable. There's one final thing I need to share. Last month, I was cleaning out some old boxes and found a letter from my grandmother, written just before she died. I'd read it at the time, but forgotten about it in the chaos of grief. In it, she explained why she left the apartment to me. "Nathan, my quiet one," she wrote, This home has been my sanctuary for 40 years, a place where I could be myself without apology or explanation. I see that same need in you, not for isolation, but for peace, for the right to choose silence over noise, solitude over crowds, depth over breadth in your relationships. The world will try to tell you there's something wrong with this. There isn't. This apartment has walls thick enough to shut out those voices when they get too loud. Use it well. I cried reading it again. She knew. She saw me, understood me, and gave me not just a home, but a fortress against exactly the kind of attack I just survived. So that's where things stand. Michael is out of our lives, at least for now. The family is healing. Jennifer and the kids are doing well in their new apartment, smaller than mine, but filled with the laughter Michael claimed my place lacked. And I'm still here in my grandmother's apartment, living my quiet life exactly as I choose to live it. To everyone who supported me through this journey, who validated my feelings and confirmed I wasn't crazy, thank you. Your voices helped drown out the gaslighting when it was at its worst. And to anyone watching this who's ever been told their personality is a problem, that their valid life choices are symptoms, that they need to be fixed to deserve respect or love, you don't. You're not broken. You're allowed to be exactly who you are, even if who you are doesn't fit someone else's idea of normal. Especially then. I won't be updating again unless something major happens, but I doubt it will. Michael burned every bridge so thoroughly that rebuilding them would take more effort than he's ever shown for anything except scheming. I'm safe. I'm at peace. And I'm alone in my apartment as I write this, exactly how I want to be. Some stories don't end with a hero surrounded by friends and family celebrating their victory together. Sometimes they end with a hero finally, blissfully left in peace. For me, that's the happiest ending. Have you ever had someone try to tell you there's something wrong with you just because you're different? Or faced manipulation like this from a family member? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. I'd really love to hear what you all think.